Connected cars, convenient or creepy? Frankly, that's not really the question. As a privacy and cybersecurity expert who's advised over a third of the Fortune 100, as well as auto manufacturers, some of the largest social media companies and other technology companies, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, I can tell you that there's a barrier to our realizing the full potential and value of connected cars. And that barrier that's in the road is not technology, it's not regulatory, it's not even ethics. That barrier is privacy. Now, certainly the connected cars, they collect information about your location and your behavior and your preferences as you move along the road. So does your phone. And eventually, so will your refrigerator. Not sure that's a good value. But as we think about this and that barrier, I'm trying to think years ahead, decades ahead, and realizing the full value. And actually, it will turn out to be privacy and consumer sentiment around technology that will actually be the gating factor to building trust, the trial and adoption of all of the new services and benefits and the things that can come from connected cars and privacy. So before I accepted to make this presentation, I actually did a little bit of research online, and I went to look around consumer sentiment and acceptance of automotive technology, and I found a couple really interesting, fun quotes. One of them was, whether you like it or not, robots are increasingly replacing human chores inside of cars. The second quote, which I found interesting too, it said that increasingly human beings are engineered out of having a reasonable encounter and experience within their automotive driving experience with new cars. Okay, those were interesting, but I got a confession to make. Those actually aren't about connected cars. Those are actually from 1958, 58 years ago, and comments about the original Chrysler launch of the first autopilot, the feature that we now call cruise control. So consumer sentiment around automotive technology, it's an emotional experience. And that, as you see as we go through these things, actually turns out to be, that will make the difference. Now, when we talk about connected cars of today, there's a perfect technological storm. Increasingly high-speed processing power, low cost of that, plus the advent of machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Internet of Things is the part that's really interesting in that it takes and embeds sensors and controllers in everyday products. That now enables companies to receive information and to monitor your engagement, your interaction, and in turn develop new services and new revenue and new business models around that product. So it's no surprise that automotive interest in this area, given that it's one of the most expensive and most influential and time-occupying product that you have interacting in your daily life, is the subject of all this discussion. So when we think about what's going to happen, sure, there's a lot of discussion of the long-term impact. It's going to be disruptive and transformative to the automotive industry, but it's also going to impact transportation, logistics, insurance, and interestingly enough, television, media, and advertising. I mean, what are you going to do with all that time in your car during your commute time when you're actually not driving? No, actually, Madison Avenue wants to know, what are you going to do in your car when you're actually not driving? So your car will increasingly over time become a platform for technology, new services, how you spend your time, entertainment, advertising. So if you think decades out, the experience is completely different than what we have now. And that consumer sentiment and how quickly we adopt those things will make a difference. Now, what's at stake? If we do it well, we'll have customized automotive experiences, autonomous driving, increased safety, and all these other new benefits. If done poorly, it's more than just a significant impact to the automotive industry in launching these services and new revenue models. It actually potentially can retard the trial and adoption of new technologies that are based in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things going forward. So there's a lot at stake here. So what's the solution? So before we can discuss the solution, we have to talk about what the heart of the problem is so we can architect the solution. And the way I look at it in privacy, today's consent model, where individuals, and I think it's an important thing that they have control all of their use and sharing of their information, but we do it on a one-by-one interaction. I opt in for this interaction for the internet online. I opt in for this hotel chain to contact me, one by one. But in the world where artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to present millions of decisions as we drive from the house to the office, to the children's school, to our vacation, the one-by-one consent model will collapse and fail, and we won't be able to realize the full value and benefit of connected cars and autonomous driving. So the solution that I'm presenting today is something that's called affiliated consent. In an affiliated consent, individuals choose to give up their individual one-by-one decision-making and actually entrust a trusted third party to be able to create curated experiences for them as they travel the road, their own digital mobile personal concierge for limited specific purposes. So who are we going to trust to make these decisions? Who are we going to trust to be able to do that? Well, is it going to be, for me, my auto manufacturer? Is Mercedes-Benz going to be able to make decisions about, well, we know where Jim goes, we know how he drives, how long it'll take, how much time he'll have at his destination, and be able to plan things? Maybe. But maybe because I travel a lot and stay at Hilton hotels and I consider that's a type of brand and a height of brand that I like, and maybe Hilton's going to get into the game and say, hey, besides just booking hotel rooms, I can create total travel adventures. So now I know that you're going on business or for pleasure to a city, and I'm going to book the entire trip. We're going to hotel reservations and sightseeing, and we're going to actually have your car be the tour guide on things that you're interested in as you move through and navigate through the city. Now, and they're also going to do it and schedule things starting after 11 o'clock because they know when I travel personally, I set late wake-up calls, right? Bringing all the information together. But maybe they're not the right one. Maybe it's AAA. AAA has over 100 years of data and understanding of what people like when they travel the roads and where they go. And they also can protect drivers. They have insurance and other things that really make a strong, wonderful, interactive experience. Maybe, but you know what? Maybe at the end of the day, we look at our credit card companies because they know our behavior. They know how we spend money. And maybe I may call myself Neiman Marcus in Saks Fifth Avenue, but when you actually look at my spending behavior, I'm actually Target. I actually love a good discount, and I love a good benefit. So they're going to be looking for discounts and things to offer me as I move through the city and work through it. Now, I don't know what the future is going to look like 20, 30 years from now, but I can tell you two things that I know about it. First, the automobile is going to be much less about automotive experience. It's actually a platform for electronics and the interactive and the services and experience and things that we're going to do. The second thing that I can tell you about the experience is that we can't predict what those new services and uses are. We think there's great things now, lane correction. How far that is off from the 1959 model autopilot from Chrysler? It's not that much different, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. Let me give you an example. We haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg. Let me give an example of motion pictures. Okay? Thomas Edison and a number of other inventors collaborated, invented the motion picture camera in 1891. 19 years later, where they said, oh, we can move the camera. We're so used to theater and people coming in from stage right, stage left, and we kept the camera still. 19 years later, they had the first action shot. It took them 19 years to move the camera. But that's not ironic. It was almost 30 years from the invention of the camera before they had the first zoom, right? Coming in and show emotion or something that's really wonderful in today's cinematography, right? Now, it wasn't that it took almost 30 years to do it. Zoom technology existed almost 9 years earlier. W.D. Griffith used it in a short film, and the comments from the press were this new Zoom technology, we didn't pay for the heads and shoulders of the actors. We paid for the full body. So we cling to things we're used to. We cling to things that we're like, and I still want consumers to have full control, right? Privacy and cybersecurity expert. I'm not necessarily about selling information. I'm not necessarily about, but I want to realize the full benefit of these things, of the technology and uses that we can. So I'm thinking it's not necessarily going to be my generation. But when I look to the millennials, I think to myself, well, I think a lot of things, but actually what I do think is that there's several. First, they're the sharing generation. They share automotive experiences, they share apartments, they share bicycles. And they also are much more adept at using technology, and maybe they'll share information for value, but also for good causes, to reduce pollution, get better use out of our cars and our natural resources. And all I know is that that's the type of balance that's really important in balancing personal privacy and choices and decision, and being able to realize the full value and benefit of connected cars. But trust is important. And without trust, the whole model fails and collapses. But right now, with the one-to-one decision-making, the road isn't clear. Using affiliated consent and trusted third party could be the first bridge on that road. Maybe not the long-term solution, but the first one that will allow us to start experiencing what that technology can do and actually give us a full, clear road to accelerate where we're going to go. Who knew that privacy, as opposed to a barrier, could actually be a competitive advantage and the accelerator on the road to realizing the full benefit and value of not just connected cars, but the next generation of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things designed products. I'm Jim Koenig from Fenwick & West. Thanks very much.